Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. A lot to talk about again this week. Phyrexia All-Will-Be-One continues to impact a lot of card prices in the secondary market. We're even going to see a few of the new cards in the video today, and a whole lot more. You know, there's always a few surprises in these videos. Our threshold again is $2. We're not going to talk about a card unless it's moving up at least $2. And quickly before we get started, a couple things. I do want to say thank you to two viewers who gave Super Thanks tips during last week's video. Peter Mullins and Thomas Wright. Thank you for the Super Thanks tip. It really helps the channel, really helps me keep making these videos. And these tips are always appreciated, but never necessary either. Just watching the videos, leaving a like, a comment, that all helps us tremendously as well. And secondly, just a reminder, if you go to FlipsideGaming.com, you can use the Heroes promo code to save 10% on orders over $10. Currently, you can order Phyrexia All-Will-Be-One products there, and they do have the complete edition bundles as well. I know a lot of people were looking for those. They are in stock currently. Remember, if your order is over $100 or consists only of singles, shipping will be free in the United States. Also, whenever you use the Heroes promo code, it does support the channel, which is always appreciated. So thank you. And without any further ado, let's get into it. It has been a while, but I finally do have a standard legal spotlight, some standard cards moving up. Let's take a look. Our first card from Phyrexia All-Will-Be-One, Montrak Glory Dominus. It goes up $2.19 this week to $38.99. This is starting to show up in Pioneer, Naya, and mid-range, but Commander is the key driver here. Many Commander players are building around this new legendary creature, and it's in the 99 of a number of decks too, old and new, including Elish Norn, Mother of Machines. It's also a good upgrade to the new Corrupting Influence Commander deck, plus you see this in fresh builds around a couple cards from there. Vishgraz the Doom Hive, and Ixal Scion of Atraxa. Plus, this was mentioned in a Tolarian Community College and a Nitpicking Nerds video this week, which could have brought some more attention to it. Next, we have Toxrill the Corrosive. This is the Innistrad double feature copy, going up $2.43 this week to $23.50. This gets a fair amount of play as a commander, but you also see this in the 99 of a number of decks there, including Atraxa Praetor's Voice. Those builds have been seeing even more play due to the support they got from Phyrexia All-Will-Be-One. Sword of Forge and Frontiers up $8.93 this week to $30. I am starting to see some add this to Pioneer Gruul vehicles and Modern Boros midrange. We'll have to see if that catches on. But it does seem to be catching on, if nowhere else, in Commander. It's already in many builds old and new there, including Chiskoria Forge Tyrant. This is also a good upgrade to both new Commander decks, Corrupting Influence and Rebellion Rising. I have seen this in fresh builds around cards from those decks too. Ixal Scion of Atraxa again from Corrupting Influence, and Othari Sun's Glory from Rebellion Rising. This was also discussed on an episode of the Command Zone podcast this week that talked about the best cards for the 99 in Phyrexia All-Will-Be-One. And the last card in this section is a big one, Atraxa Grand Unifier. This goes up $39.40 to $49.99. Okay, this might be the breakout card from Phyrexia All-Will-Be-One, and it is being played in multiple formats already. Turns out this is a great card to reanimate or cheat into play. Standard, you do see this in builds like 5-color Invoke Justice, the Kami War. I have seen some trying this out in a few Pioneer and Modern decks, including Indomitable Creativity builds in both of those formats, for example. Legacy, we're seeing this in Reanimator builds and more. Vintage players are trying this out in Oath of Druids. Ultimately, we'll have to see what sticks in those formats, but when it comes to Commander, it's also quickly becoming a highly played Commander. Plus, it's in the 99 of some builds, including Atraxa Praetor's Voice again. Plus, this was also discussed in a Nitpicking Nerds video this week. Now, when it comes to premium copies of this card, guess what? They're jumping too. Let's take a quick look at some examples. The regular foil copy is up $33.97 to $45. The showcase copy is up $38.04 to $52. The showcase foil up $48.02 to $67.50. And the oil slick foil is up $154.73 to $250.01. Now, these prices are still very volatile since these cards are getting into circulation. Takes a little time, especially for like those oil slick foils to get out there and get into people's hands. And there is also a lot of hype around the card right now. So stay close to these prices. They could move up and down in the coming weeks and months. Hard to say where the prices are going to land at this point. Just depends on where this card ends up when it comes to gameplay in the end. And that takes us to the Pioneer Legal Spotlight. This is where we look at the Pioneer Legal cards moving the most this week. So let's see what's happening. First, we have Darksteel Forge from Magic 2014. It goes up $2.10 this week to $44.94. The Plane Chase copy of this is moving down some, but this one's still going up. Obviously, this took off in Commander with the release of the Brothers' War, but it is still hot due to the artifact interactions in Phyrexia All-Be-One. It is getting additional Commander play now and builds around a number of new cards, including the Eternal Legendary Mirror, Urtet, Remnant of Memnarch. Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. This is the one from the list that goes up 248 this week to 29.99, and this is rebounding after a drop last week. In Pioneer and Modern, it's found in various control builds. Also gets a good amount of Commander play, and yes, you do see this at times and attracts a Praetor's Voice. The Chain Veil is next. This is the copy from the list that goes up 253 to 29.11. This is in the sideboard of the very popular Pioneer Nykthos ramp deck, and there's quite a few of those in the Pro Tour this weekend if you've been watching. But it also gets a lot of Commander play too. You see this in many Attracts of Praetor's Voice builds, and you see this in new Commander decks too, like Venser Corpse Puppet, for example. Resplendent Angel, this goes up 272 this week to 44.83. This is in the Pioneer Selesnya Angels deck, which does get a good amount of play in the format, although there's not many of them in the field in the Pro Tour this weekend. Additionally, you see this in many Commander builds, even Attracts of Praetor's Voice at times. Neheb the Eternal is up 344 this week to 29.72. This has been seeing increased Commander play in a build around a card from Phyrexia All-Be-One, Solfim Mayhem Dominus. Here's the card we've seen a lot of recently, Vorinclex Monstrous Raider from Kaldheim. It goes up 491 this week to 66.80. Now remember, this creature is one of the borderless concept Praetor cards that can be found in Phyrexia All-Be-One set, draft, and collector boosters, but still, it's a highly played Commander card. Many times you see this as the Commander. Commonly, it's found in Attracts of Praetor's Voice decks, and it's in some new builds too, like Azuri Stalker of Spheres, for example. It's also a good upgrade to Corrupting Influence, and it's in fresh builds around Ixel and Vishgrass from there. And our last card in this section is Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. Now, this copy from the list is dry online this week, going up 16.75 to 59.75. But this could be an indicator of the other Theros copy, perhaps moving up more soon too. Ultimately, we'll have to kind of see where these cards land. But again, the Pro Tour has been showing us this Nykthos Ramp Pioneer deck. Many of them are in the field this weekend, and they're getting more exposure than they ever got before. Of course, this is a big part of that deck, but it's also in Selesnya Angels, another popular deck, and it's in other builds in the format as well. Plus, this gets a lot of Commander play, and you do see this in new builds around cards from Phyrexia All-Be-One. One example is Elish Norn, Mother of Machines. Welcome to the Modern Legal Spotlight. A lot of cards in this section this week, so let's get started. We have a Chroma's Memorial. This is the one from Magic 2013. It goes up 208 this week to 1954. Solid Commander cards seeing more play in some new builds, like Urtet, Remnant of Memnarch, and in builds around a card from the main set, Gra's Unstoppable Juggernaut. Mirror Propagator, up 228 this week to 495. Mirror are back in Phyrexia All-Be-One. Not surprisingly, people are putting this in Commander Urtet Remnant of Memnarch builds, of course, and to a lesser degree, Gra's Unstoppable Juggernaut decks in Commander. Some of this boost is due to players, some of it due to speculators picking up key mirror cards. Viral Drake up 228 to 623. Phyrexia All-Be-One brought back poison counters and proliferate, so no surprise that this card is moving. You see this regularly in Attracts of Praetor's Voice Commander builds. Additionally, it's in Commander decks around several new cards as well, including Tekuthal Inquiry Dominus. Doubling Season from Double Masters goes up 281 this week to 93.40. Yup, another huge Commander card found in many builds like Attracts of Praetor's Voice, and it's also in builds around new cards including the popular Urtet Remnant of Memnarch. Overall, this is a card that plays well with the mechanics and many cards from Phyrexia All-Be-One. Craterhoof Behemoth, the one from Modern Masters 2017. It goes up 286 this week to $40.96. This is in Legacy Elves and 5-color Zenith. It's also a popular Commander card in Lateral Blade of the Elves and much more there. And yeah, it's getting a good amount of play in builds around new cards too. Attracts a Grand Unifier is one of those. And this was mentioned on the Command Zone podcast this week as a card you may want to play in the 99 with Green Sun's Twilight. Mirror Matrix up 301 this week to $29.99. Solid Mirror support card moving because of the return of Mirror. Not shocking that you see this in Urtet Remnant of Memnarch Commander builds now. Inexorable Tide. This card's a mirrored in copies of 218 to 1293. The Modern Masters 2015 copies of 323 to 1415. Another card moving due to the new and returning mechanics in Phyrexia All-Be-One. You also see this in Commander Attracts of Praetor's Voice builds, and it's in decks around new cards too. One example is Azuri Stalker of Spheres. Gemstone Caverns, the one from the list, is up $381 this week to $50.87. This continues to see more and more modern play. It's in Crashing Footfalls and a number of other decks there. Also getting a little legacy play too. It's in Orzhov Initiative, for example. And you see this in a variety of commander decks as well. Contagion Engine, the copy from the list, goes up $423 this week to $17.72. The Scars of Mirrodin copy goes up $475 to $17.92. Here is another card being pushed by Phyrexia All-Be-One. It's a solid commander card and combo enabler in several builds, like Atraxa Praetor's Voice again. It's also showing up in a ton of new commander decks around cards from Phyrexia All-Be-One, including Azuri Stalker of Spheres. Additionally, it's a good upgrade to Corrupting Influence, and it's in fresh builds around Ixel and Vishgraz from there. Bloodstained Mire, that Onslaught copy, goes up $629 this week to $72.82. This original copy is rebounding and then some after a drop last week. It is a fetch land, so you know this sees extensive play in many decks in a number of formats, like Modern, Legacy, and Commander. Wow, Elesh Norn Grand Cenobite, the Mystery Booster copy of $353 to $36.27, the Iconic Masters copy of $496 to $38.25, the Modern Masters 2015 copy of $556 to $40.48, and the new Phyrexia copy of $732 to $42.07. This has been a fairly popular commander, and it's in the 99 of many builds, including, you guessed it, Atraxa Praetor's Voice. This is also showing up in new commander builds around a number of cards from Phyrexia All-Be-One, including Elesh Norn Mother of Machines. And yeah, it is another good upgrade to Corrupting Influence, and it's in new builds around Ixel 2. Plus, it was also discussed in a Tolarian Community College video this week. Sword of Truth and Justice from Modern Horizons goes up $12.35 this week to $38.10. Another Proliferate card moving up. You see this in Atraxa Praetor's Voice commander builds as well. And you are seeing this in a bunch of decks around cards from Phyrexia All-Be-One in the format now too, including Azuri Stalker of Spheres. Plus, it is another good upgrade to Corrupting Influence and a new builds around Ixel as well. And the last card in this section is another big mover, Skithiryx the Blight Dragon, the Double Masters copy of $587 to $36.99, the list copies of $664 to $36.62, and the Scars of Mirrodin copies of $16 to $43.82. This does get some play as a commander, but it's also in the 99 of many decks, including everybody's favorite Atraxa Praetor's Voice. It is yet another good upgrade to Corrupting Influence, and I have seen this in fresh builds around Ixel and Vishgraz from there, and it's in some commander builds around a card from the main set too, Karumonix the Rat King. Additionally, this was another card mentioned in a Tolarian Community College video this week. And it is time for our salute to all Eternal formats, but mostly Commander. It is the Eternal Spotlight. So, of course, all the cards in this section are not going to be legal in all Eternal formats. However, none of these cards are going to be legal in Standard, Pioneer, or Modern. Cover of Darkness up $2.02 this week to $44.76. This does appear at times in Atraxa Praetor's Voice, but it also is getting more play in Commander Karumonix the Rat King builds now. It is a good upgrade to Corrupting Influence 2, and it's a new builds around Ixel. Don't forget though, this also gets play in the pre-modern format, and that format has been having a bigger impact on card prices recently. And yeah, this was another card mentioned in a Tolarian Community College video this week too. Wedding Ring. This is one of the Innistrad Crimson Vow Eternal cards. It goes up $209 this week to $19.62. It is getting additional commander play now in some Elesh Norn Mother of Machines decks. Flawless Maneuver up $220 to $12.27. Now, this is the new printing from the Rebellion Rising commander deck. Of course, it's in fresh builds around cards from there, Nayali Sun's Vanguard and Othari Sun's Glory, but it's also in a number of builds around cards from the main set, including Elesh Norn Mother of Machines. Plus, this did get a mention on the Command Zone podcast and in a Nitpicking Nerds video this week. Caltrops, this is the one from 7th edition. It goes up $224 this week to $625. This copy, a little dry on line this week. Ultimately, we'll have to see what happens with this price. It does get some commander play, though, usually in Geierson, Star, and Kellermorph builds, but this card also is played in pre-modern. Grand Monolith, this is up $249 this week to $277.99. Small increase here when it comes to the percentage, but this is a good card. In Legacy, you see this in Cloudpost Ramp, Vintage, sometimes Paradoxical Outcome or Prison Shops, and it's in a variety of commander builds, including Urza Lord High Artificer. The Ur Dragon from Commander 2017, this only comes in foil. It goes up $276 this week to $86.95. This card continues to be the most popular commander for Dragon Tribal. Nux Opal, the Modern Masters 2015 copy of $233 to $79.99. The double Masters copy is up $279 to $80.37, and the Scars Mirrodin copy is up $293 to $80.52. This is in Legacy, Painter, and more there. Vintage, you see this in Paradoxical Outcome. It is a very popular Commander card too. It's getting more play now in some Urtet Remnant of Memnarch builds. Force of Will from Alliances goes up $3.01 to $99.99. Force of Will was just reprinted in Dominaria Remastered, and this copy did lose some value, but now this week it is moving up some. It's played in multiple builds in Legacy, Vintage, and Commander. Taiga from Revised up $316 to $387.63. Small percentage increase here, but I think it's still worth noting because overall these Revised dual lands have stabilized, and in some cases have been moving up since the drop they saw following the Magic 30th Anniversary Edition announcement. Of course, they're all highly played in all the formats where they're legal. Artificer class, this goes up $318 this week to $15.96. This is from the Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate Draconic Descent Commander deck. It did get a bump in Commander play with the release of the Brothers' War. It did fit into a number of new Commander builds around cards from there. Generally though, this is a solid Commander card that only has this one printing so far, and now it is getting additional Commander play in Urtet Remnant of Memnarch builds at times as well. Gilded Drake up $322 this week to $279.78. This might be starting to rebound after some losses it took over the last few months. Solid Commander card in several different builds, and this also sees play in the pre-modern format. Alran Frostfang, this is the one from Commander 2019 this time. It goes up $383 this week to $24.05. This is in lots of Commander builds, including Vorinclex Monstrous Raider. It's also another good upgrade to Corrupting Influence, and in fresh builds around Vishgraz. Show and Tell from Urza Saga is up $408 this week to $43.36. This copy is a little dry online, but in Legacy you see this in Sneak and Show and More. Also gets a little Commander play. Underground Sea from Revised is up $418 this week to $769.99. Anacrypt, the Mystery Booster copy of $363 to $199.99. The Eternal Masters copy goes up $427 this week to $204.25. This is in a lot of vintage builds, including Esper Tinker, and it's a big Commander card in many decks, including, wait for it, Atraxa Praetor's Voice. It's in new builds too, though. You see this in many Elish Norn Mother of Machines decks already. Intuition from Tempest up $916 to $179.99. This is in Legacy Omnitel, and it also appears in a variety of Commander builds, including Urza Lord High Artificer. Demonic Tutor, this is the Strixhaven Mystical Archive copy. It's dry online this week, going up $10.24 to $61.18. We'll have to see if this price actually holds, but it is in Vintage, Esper Tinker, and much more. This is also a huge Commander card found in many different Commander decks, including Atraxa Praetor's Voice, and it's in new builds like Atraxa Grand Unifier. Clever Concealment. This is up $10.56 this week to $19.99. It is from the Rebellion Rising Commander deck, and it's in fresh builds around Nayali and Othari from there. But ultimately, it's just a solid Commander card showing up in a lot of builds old and new now. You see this in Atraxa Praetor's Voice, Elish Norn Mother of Machines. It's also a good upgrade to Corrupting Influence. It's in new builds around Vishgraz. This might be the breakout card from the Phyrexia All-Be-One Commander decks. Definitely one to keep an eye on. You probably didn't see this coming with all the subtle foreshadowing throughout the video. Atraxa Praetor's Voice. The Double Masters copy is up $656 to $76.54, and these other two copies only come in foil. Commander Anthology Volume 2, up $858 to $97.91. The Commander 2016 copy up $1068 to $88.44. As we've been saying, this was a popular Commander to begin with, now being pushed even more because of the mechanics in many of the cards in Phyrexia All-Be-One. It's in the 99 in some builds too, including some around new cards like Urtet Remnant and Memnarch, and Atraxa Grand Unifier, for example. Plus, this was discussed on the Command Zone podcast this week, and it was in a Tolarian Community College video too. Liu from Revised. This one's up $14.99 this week to $424.99. And our last card today is Pearl Medallion from Commander 2014. Now, this particular copy dry online this week, and it jumps up $26.44 to $56.92. Will that sustain? Well, hard to say, but I imagine it will probably retract a little bit. This is quite a big jump very quickly. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if the Tempest copy starts jumping very soon, if it already hasn't begun to. Something to watch, anyway. Now, when it comes to gameplay, this is found in many mono-white Commander builds, and it's in some new ones around Phyrexia All-Be-One cards. Some popular ones, too, like Elish Norn Mother of Machines, Mondrak Glorious Dominus, and Skrelv Defector Might. That's going to do it for this episode of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. I did put out a series of shorts throughout the weekend. If you're interested to see which cards are going down in value, check out those shorts. There's a few different categories. And if you prefer the long form videos, of course, we're going to still do the Market Watch every weekend. And if you don't watch, on Tuesdays, I put out the top 10 hot cards video for the week. And sometimes there are cards we discuss there that are not in the regular episode of the Market Watch. Just kind of depends on how everything falls that week. But anyway, until next time, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page, as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.